So you saw Three Body Problem?
Yeah, this is a Netflix show. It's made by the Game of Thrones guys, David Benioff and DB Weiss.
Right.
After they rushed through Game of Thrones in to get to their Star Wars that got canceled because they rushed through Game of Thrones. Three Body Problem is based on a book. I think it's a Chinese book, and it's a sci-fi kind of thing. So it's very much in the same vein, I would say, as like Lost and things like that. There was a show on Hulu or FX Hulu called Devs, and it kind of reminds me of that too. It's like where it's a sci-fi premise and it gets kind of heady and there's a lot of mysteries, and then like it resolves it at the end. In Devs it is resolved. This, I think that it needs another season to get resolved, but I found it actually really good. It starts off like with a bang. It starts off with, I don't want to get too much into the plot because part of the fun is getting all these mysteries and having them revealed. But just know it's in that vein of like Devs, Lost, where there's mysteries. But unlike Lost, it actually seeks to resolve these mysteries quite quickly and satisfactory. And it's more about the like philosophy and good sci-fi usually kind of tries to say something about humanity and philosophy and stuff. And this also has good characters too. So it starts off with like a really good scene about like China in I think it's the 50s or 60s. It's like the Cultural Revolution. And it's a really like graphic depiction of a Chinese struggle session. It's like really well done, really detailed and graphic. And I was like, man, it's like really not flattering for communists. So I was like, oh wow, I can't believe they're depicting this. but it sets up like this one character, her motivations throughout the story, and they flash back to kind of much like Lost. They do some flashbacks to this one character who witnesses the struggle session of her father, and how it motivates her in the plot going forward, and within the context of Mao's China. And she like does some science that reveals some things, and those things that happen in the 60s and 70s, they have implications in the present day plot. And the present day plot, I would say at first it started off really rough for me because it has to cover a lot of shoe leather, as we said in the previous one, and we figured out the etymology of that one, right? It's because you're walking with your boots and the shoe leather of the boots. It's like
some of the listeners had never heard the term shoe leather to describe writing that is kind of like needlessly descriptive or needlessly talky, inefficient. And yeah, apparently it's because of maybe it was based in journalism where you're trying to get a story and you're having to walk all around to get the whole story.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of dialogue that has to set up a lot of characters and like what they're doing. Because in the present day, the conceit is they have these scientists, and it's a group of scientist friends. And they recently, the particle colliders, like, CERN, those particle colliders that are big and do experiments, they started just producing nonsense results, like just out of nowhere. And so basically all of like particle science, like just is like, it's useless now. And so they have to like move on with their lives or figure out something out. And there's like different sectors of these scientists that are trying to figure this out. And that's the mystery there. And it goes off from there. And then you go back to the communist China plot. And so it keeps kind of bouncing back and forth until it kind of merges into one plot in the present day. And I was kind of concerned at first because you have some like Game of Thrones actors in here. Like you have Samuel Tarly, that fat guy. He's actually really good in it.
Yeah.
And they have like Davos Seaworth. He's like this like kind of secret government head honcho, and he's mysterious, but he's got a kind of, he's like serious and he's stern, but he has kind of a heart. So he's kind of interesting. And he's like I like when they portray really competent people, and he's a competent person. And so they have this mystery of the science not working, and then it goes into a different plot, which I don't want to explain because I really think if you're into sci-fi, if you're into things like Lost with good character, the thing about with Lost, people were like, oh, well, it wasn't really about the mysteries. It was really about the characters. And I think that's kind of a cope. I mean, I agree with it. I love the characters in Lost, but I think it's kind of a cope because they set up all these mysteries and they did resolve a lot of them, but it was very unsatisfactory. This is where you get good characters, you get good sciencey mysteries, and they build to something, and they have meaning within the story and with the characters. So I recommend it, and it does kind of end on a cliffhanger. So I hope it gets another season, which is kind of a bummer. I wish it kind of wrapped up to something in the first season, but I think the Game of Thrones guys, they do really well when they actually have source material to drop.
Yeah, you really think that's where Game of Thrones fell off?
Yeah, of course. Like once they
up.
didn't have books to go by, that's when it goes crazy. It goes haywire.
Yeah, and I mean we haven't seen them stick the landing on an ending yet either.
Maybe wait till the second season if there is one. I think it's doing well. I don't know. It's hard to tell with streaming shows, but yeah, I recommend. That's an EJ recommend.
I bet it's big budget if it's those guys.
Yes, I mean it looks good. It looks it's well acted. Well, I would say it's probably lower budget than Game of Thrones, but it's
polished.
It's polished. Yes.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.